For centuries, men and women have stepped away from the table to fast, to pray, to seek something deeper. But what does a 40-day fast look like today? I'm Dr. Sam King of Fasting, and in this podcast, I invite you to walk with four ordinary people on an extraordinary journey. Welcome back to day 16. So today's verse is Romans 5:3. I'll go through that one in just a minute. I'm just going to let you know that ahead of time. And our research today is actually going to be on sleep, because Chelsea took a nap during the day, which is unlike her. She took a 3-hour nap, and she was still able to sleep all through the night. Her weight had stayed the same for several days. It can plateau when you fast, especially when you drop it really fast at the beginning. But so then there were some non-scale victories, and some of her non-scale victories were like her pants were fitting better. So that's good. That's a non-scale victory. I had a date night that night, and so I had to do a non-food date, which is unusual for our food-centric culture. We went bowling, and then we played video games. And actually, I'd been cold that day, so I wanted something to make me feel warm. So I wanted some bone broth or some chicken broth. So we went to the grocery store at the end of our date, and I found some chicken stock. I could only find one that actually had all real ingredients. And then I added a dash of Texas Pete hot sauce to my chicken stock, because when I lived down south, you put Texas Pete on your chicken, and I fell in love with the flavor. So adding a little bit of spicy Texas Pete to my 25 calories of bone broth or chicken stock became my new favorite fasting fuel. I was like, this is amazing. I get something spicy in chicken. So that's my fasting fuel recommendation for day 16. I had tried some mushroom broth, but it just made me hungry. And so I couldn't do any mushroom flavor anymore when I was fasting. There you go. Sometimes fasting fuels are great during certain days, and then sometimes they become not as successful to you for you anymore. But the chicken stock with the Texas Pete, amazing for me. And then Brienne, on her 16th day, we went out with our daughter for lunch and took her friends out for tacos. She had nice tea, but the tacos, that's her like one of her favorite foods, and so that was really hard for her. And so this is where we get our verse. What she realized, and her comment for that day was, "I will rejoice in my suffering, because it will produce a harvest of righteousness if I do not give up." So back to our verse that day in Romans 5:3. Not only this, but we will also rejoice in suffering, or in some versions says tribulations, knowing that the suffering produces endurance. So you can rejoice in your suffering in your fasting if you're doing it for why God called you to do it. I know that's sometimes hard. Like, man, sometimes it's difficult, because you want food. Sometimes you want the flavor, and we're going to talk about that tomorrow on day 17. People were just starting just like wanting to get back to eating food. But there's sleep. So some people wonder about sleep with fasting. And at the beginning, it can disrupt your sleep, but it actually is shown to actually help long-term with your sleep. So our circadian cues, our sleep cues, our circadian rhythm comes from sunlight, and ironically, it also comes from food. And so if you have different eating times, then that can mess your circadian rhythm up. But if you fast, you don't have this food circadian rhythm anymore, because you're not eating on a routine schedule, or you're not messing that schedule by eating at different times. And so your circadian rhythm actually resets with the sun. Fasting has actually been shown to increase alertness by increasing the level of awake neurotransmitter, orexin. So the one that makes you feel more awake and more alert, orexin, that neurotransmitter is increased when you fast, and actually helps you sleep better. And when you are exposed to the sunlight and no longer have a food circadian rhythm, your sleep-wake cycle is improved when you fast long-term. Because you're fasting, because you're not eating food, because you have one circadian rhythm, the sun, you increase your wakefulness hormone, orexin A. Fasting helps with your sleep-wake cycle and actually improves your sleep. So that is one of the, as we mentioned, non-scale victories that you can have while you fast. So see you tomorrow on day 17.